Happy New Year. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, January 5th. I've been joined by Councilmember Cano, Quincy, Fry, Reich, and Warsami, which is everybody on our committee. We have a lengthy agenda this morning, so this afternoon. We'll start with the consent agenda, which is items 14 through 21. I'll note that there's been a request to return item 17 to staff. Are there any items anyone would like to pull 14 through 21? Seeing none, I'll move items 14 through 21, noting item 17 is being returned to staff. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. All of those items are approved. If you were here for any of those items, you do not need to stay. We'll then move to our public hearing agenda, starting with item number 1, which is a land sale. Mr. Pettiford, welcome.
Madam Chair, committee members, I have a proposal from Quinn Nugent to buy a property at 609 Fillmore Street Northeast. She offered the full $33,900 that we asked for. She proposes to build a fairly contemporary home that's 3,400 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, with a double car detached garage. The lot size is 39 by 124. I had the pleasure of being out at the neighborhood when they reviewed this, and they were just delighted with this proposal, and so they recommended it. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Pettiford on item number 1? Seeing none, this is a land sale on item number 1, which is 609 Fillmore Street Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of this land sale.
Approval of item number 1 is removed. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. On to item number 2, Mr. Pettiford.
Madam Chair, I have a proposal from Powder and Resonance Group to purchase 2422 16th Avenue South to build a single-family home, which they will be marketing for owner occupancy. They have partnered on this project with East Phillips, and they're proposing to build a 1,750 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home with a 2-car detached garage. And again, the home will be sold for owner occupancy. The lot size here is 44 by 123. And again, they are partnering with the neighborhood, so the neighborhood supports and endorses this proposal.
Mr. Pettiford, this seems to be the most expensive write-down I've seen pretty much in multiple years. Can you explain how we would think it was acceptable to buy a piece of property for almost $120,000? Because we thought something else was going to happen, and then when it didn't, we were like, oh, okay, no harm, no foul. We'll be $120,000 into it and turn around and sell it for $10,000. You think that was a good decision?
Probably the initial decision to purchase it was challenged. Once that decision was made and we examined the structure that then was on the parcel, it was determined that it was grossly infeasible for repair. And as a consequence, it was demolished. And the resulting land value is fairly low. I think it's advertised at its full fair market value, which is $10,100. So the volume is very large because the purchase price is very large, and it was part of, I think it was the Phillips and Phillips project. And it was a piece that the neighborhood desired to purchase from, I believe, Mr. Meldo. And we did pay a considerable sum for the property. I unfortunately wasn't part of that process, but I did have the opportunity to sell the land.
I appreciate that. I just want to take note that when we purchase property for an assemblage for a larger project and the project doesn't come to fruition, it probably should be noted we're that deep into it, and we should be looking at how we can recoup those costs out of the larger project. And it's clear here that we purchased this for the purpose of being part of a larger project, and when they didn't want to include it, we were like, apparently, okay, no big deal. We'll just take that giant loss, is what it looks like to me. Since there's no other explanation in this report other than what I'm concocting, seeing what's happening.
Well, this was a multifamily project. I presume that staff carefully examined with the developer the feasibility of this being included. They concluded that it was grossly infeasible, hence the decision to tear it down. It's unfortunate that it came at such a high price.
Right, to the taxpayers. Exactly.
Yes.
I think we need to be much more conscious. So I would just note to CPED leadership, Mr. Taylor is here, so that's good. That when we say we're going to buy something to include in something else, and then we don't, there's a major cost. I mean, I'm sure you can use $117,000 for some other very good need in CPED rather than a giant write-off now as a result of that. So I think we should be very conscious this kind of thing does not continue to happen. This happened in 2001, so it was a long time ago, prior to the time that I was even chair of CD. And I've been chair of CD a long time. So I just want to make sure we don't play this game with other properties in the future. And I'm sure our finance officer probably feels the exact same way. Further comments from Mr. Pettiford? Thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 2, which is a land sale at 2420 16th Avenue South to PRG. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move approval of item number 2.
Item number 2 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. On to item number 3. Ms. Shoquist, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman, members of the committee. I am before you today to request your consideration of the passage of the resolution authorizing the side yard program to sell certain side yard properties. The list includes 52 certain properties without identified buyers. The eligibility for inclusion on the side yard program property list is determined by the real estate disposition policy of the city. The properties that will be considered for this program include properties that may be buildable but have a very small frontage width or area. There are only 2 of those included on this list. The majority of the properties included on this list are of a regular size, that they don't allow for setbacks. They have conflicting land use, unsuitable soils, or needed for parking or open space for adjacent building, and are not served by an alley. And so therefore are unbuildable lots. And there may also be a side yard where adjacent lots are non-conforming, but there are currently none of those properties on this list. This public hearing is to address the sale of all of these properties at once rather than conducting individual hearings on all 52. Sale will be only to the adjacent property owners. When a buyer is identified, staff will proceed with the land sale closing without having to return to council for the approval of the specific purchaser. If there are more than one interested party, the lots will be split according by percentage of the size of the adjacent lots. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Shoquist on the side yard resolution?
No.
Seeing none, well, thank you very much for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 3, which is authorizing a resolution of the side yard program for sales of properties listed in the report to adjacent neighbors. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move approval of item number 3.
Item number 3 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 4, which is a land sale at 33rd Street North. Casey, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Before you today is a request to approve the land sale for the Nicollet Hotel Block at 33rd Street South to United Properties as a developer for $10.4 million. We're also requesting approval of the term sheet attached to the council report that staff would use to draft and execute the redevelopment contract with United Properties before we close. The Gateway project would consist of a 30 to 40-story mixed-use tower that would include ground floor retail, a full-service hotel, and residential apartments on the upper floors. United Properties has secured Greystar as a development partner. They're one of the largest national residential developers in the nation. Additionally, part of the minimum improvements, the project would include 2 levels of underground parking, public plaza space, and a skyway connection going from the Gateway project to the Central Library. And then the Central Library, there would be another connection across Nicollet Mall from the library to Opus's pending project on the Ritz block, enabling the Gateway building to be connected to the rest of the system. In terms of timing, we expect to close on the sale within the next 18 months. We're recommending a total due diligence period of 24 months in case there needs to be some extra time to close. So the developer, as it stands, would have 12 months to submit completed land use applications to the city. At that point, if those, for whatever reason, the city does not approve those land use applications, then the developer would back out, or the redevelopment contract would be canceled, and the city would retain $400,000 of the good faith deposit. And then, assuming we get through the land use approvals within that 12 months, we'd have another 6 months to close. And if for some reason that closing, there needs to be some extra time from that 18-month to the 24-month period, the developer would deposit an additional $400,000 with the city. And we think this time frame makes sense just based on the scope of the project, the mix of uses, and it's consistent with some other projects that are under development or have been developed downtown recently. And then I'll say that in terms of the Skyway connection, United Properties is currently in discussions with Hennepin County and Opus to secure those agreements. And so we've allowed a 6-month period for them to do so with no funds at risk. And we've already been having those initial discussions, and they're moving forward, so we're confident that will happen. And then, finally, I'll say that in terms of all along we've been working with the developer to ensure that this site accommodates a streetcar. The potential Nicollet Central line, it would traverse through the eastern half of the block, and there would be one station in the public plaza area, so the city would retain an easement. And that would add to the iconic feel of this block. And so we've been working diligently with their team to ensure, the structural integrity of the parking structure will support the streetcar, make sure there is room for that station and all the infrastructure that would go along with the streetcar. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and the developer's team is here as well.
Are there any questions for staff on item number 4? Seeing none, thank you for your report. This is a public hearing, so anyone who wants to speak, including members of the development staff, the development team, can feel free to step forward. This is a public hearing on item number 4, which is a land sale at 33rd Street North. Is there anyone here for this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. I'm going to leave the public hearing open, as it sounds like we're going to talk about forwarding this without recommendation. It's pretty shocking the developer doesn't want to get up and say something. I would think with a project as large as this, you might want to take the opportunity to say something. I don't know why I'd want to vote for this if you don't want to get up and ask me to.
Yeah. Very well. Good afternoon. Bill Catter, United Properties. Everything that the staff has said here is accurate, and we have appreciated the staff's time over the last basically 10 months to get to the point of having a project that's ready to move forwards full speed. If you'll support our project, this project, it basically delivers on our initial promise to the city of Minneapolis to provide an iconic development project that is mixed use in nature with retail, hotel, and apartments all in the same basic structure. It also accommodates, as staff member Casey identified, a streetcar system through the site, and provides generally skyway connectivity through the rest of downtown. We really think the main aspects of this development are an iconic structure, a significant scale, a luxury hotel, and an enlivenment of this side of downtown Minneapolis. We think it's critical that this block get redeveloped in this manner in order to change the continued evolution and pace of development on this side of downtown. So we think we're fulfilling the promise we made when you initially selected us, and I'll stay out here for any other questions that you may have of me.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Sounds like for the public hearing portion there are not.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here from the United Properties team who wants to say something? No? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing because I don't want to leave it open for the council meeting. And I think committee business should be handled in committee. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I will be moving to forward this item without recommendation, and I will explain why. The history of this parcel is extensive. I called this parcel the sexiest one in the entire city, and for very good reason. It's the linkage from the Mississippi River, not just to our downtown, but to the entire western half of our country. This parcel deserves a building as well as a public realm that is emblematic of something spectacular. And when we selected United Properties, the vision that was portrayed was impressive. As is often the case with an RFP process, given market conditions, given the loss of a residential developer, the gain of a residential developer, the loss of a hotel manager, the gain of a hotel manager, things change. And at this point in time, we have a building as well as a public realm component that is quite simply not there yet. So what we will be doing is forwarding this item without recommendation to the full council. And in the interim, we will be working to secure all necessary items within the term sheet so that the development, so that the term sheet itself has within it a prerequisite of a beautiful, iconic project. And I fully expect us to be able to get to that point where it will ultimately get approval. And, so this particular incident being aside, I feel that it's also necessary to address our RFP process as a whole. Right now, and this is nobody's fault, but right now, our RFP process incentivizes overpromise, followed by change of plans, and in some cases, under delivery. In many ways, it's like a first date. On the first date, you're charming, you've showered, you're a wonderfully nice guy, and it's only in the third date where you realize that you live in the basement of your parents' house. And looking forward, we do need to find ways to change that so that all of the cards are laid out up front. Now, United Properties did that, by the way. There were changes in the market that necessitated changes in the ultimate parcel. But I do think we need to find ways of making the playing ground completely fair going forward. So with this particular project, I think there's quite a bit of promise. I think that Gray Star, without a doubt, made the right decision in going with United Properties because this parcel is going to be extraordinary. And I thank our staff for the year's worth of work, as well as United Properties and the architecture firm for working with us as well. And while we're not ready to say yes at this point, I think we can get to something at a solid way of moving forward by next Friday in the council meeting. So I move to forward this item without recommendation.
Are there further comments or questions? I'm going to make a few comments about this. I will say in my almost 18 years of working on the council, I probably spent 10 years working to get this property ready for redevelopment. So I agree with Councilmember Fry that this is a critical location within the city and requires something of a significant a significant project to go on this location. But I'll note that our priorities were to have a mixed-use project with hotel and housing and underground parking, what this project has. We also had a request for a total cost of development or a total price of development over $160 million, which this project has. We asked for the highest possible price, and this project has the highest possible offering price. We asked that the project be streetcar ready, and this project is, for the most part, streetcar ready. And we asked for an iconic design. And I think iconic is in the eyes of the beholder. I don't personally think that this design is anything near iconic, but I think that that's often for other people to debate whether what they think is iconic. I thought that the design that was put forward by LHP was far superior to what you're showing now. So there is a disappointment in the look of the design, in particular the massing on Hennepin Avenue. But I do take a little bit of issue, and Councilmember Fry knows this, with regard to the RFP process. The RFP process laid out 5 things that they were supposed to meet, and they've met basically every one of the 5 things other than the question about the design. So I would say it is like a first date. It would be like me going out with someone who is 30 years old, 6'5", 175 pounds, blue eyes, blonde hair. And while we were dating, they dyed their hair to brown. Not as much as I'd like the blonde, I'd like the brown. But, you know, that part changed. And what it says is they're still 6'5", they still weigh 175 pounds, they still have blue eyes, it's still a man. And the bottom line is they changed their hair color. Things change in an entire year of working on development. And I think so I can make an analogy just like anyone else can that this is not the design that most of us would like to see. I think United Properties and their architects have heard that. It sounds like it's not the design that we're going to approve, and we're not approving that today. But every other part of this project, the mixed of uses, the total development cost, the price that they're paying for the land, the streetcar readiness, are all here in this project. And so if we can fix the design, that would be great. And I support Councilmember Fry's motion, and I also support his attempt to try to elevate the design to something more like what we saw during the RFP. I don't want to be in a position where people say this was a bait and switch. You promised us this design, and now it's something completely different. But I don't think the design is the single most important thing. Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Goodman and I do weigh certain aspects of projects differently, I believe. Councilmember Goodman puts more emphasis on the price, whereas in this case, I'm putting more emphasis on the design and the importance of this particular parcel. That being said, I also wanted to add that the particular pretty pictures, or not pretty pictures, depending on how you look at that were published in many papers this morning, were simply massing studies. So when you have a massing architectural drawing, that is significantly different from the final beautiful version that you'll ultimately get. So that is an important distinction that I know the architects would certainly want me to make, and that is a distinction that I think will certainly come to light in the coming weeks. We're going to get a project that is as sexy as this parcel deserves, and I'm looking forward to working on it.
Further comments or questions on Councilmember Fry's motion to move forward item 4 without recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to item number 5. Ms. Grossen, welcome.
Madam Chair Goodman and council members, I'm Beth Grossen, the CPAD project coordinator for Near North, including Bassett Creek Valley. The issue before you is to adopt a redevelopment plan for an area of about 7.5 acres near 2nd Avenue North and Van White Memorial Boulevard. The city owns several parcels in this area already as a result of the Van White Road and Bridge project. Adoption of the plan will allow the city to facilitate redevelopment, including acquisition as well as the sale of property in this area. There is interest by one property owner to voluntarily sell property to the city. This privately owned property that's adjacent to other city parcels is one of the reasons for developing this plan. We have received public comments from the Harrison Neighborhood Association relating to the plan. There have also been recent discussions with HNA, the Bassett Creek Valley Rock, and the Bryn Mawr Neighborhood Association for some land use modifications in the area related to the Bottineau Station area planning for the Van White Station at Highway 55. Some of the comments I've received for this plan more directly relate to that matter, which will be coming to the City Council in coming months. Over 50 residents endorsed the Harrison position, which I will read as follows. The Harrison Neighborhood Association believes the upcoming redevelopment proposal for 2nd Avenue and Van Wyck Memorial Bridge area should consist of the following. Harrison is not an extension of downtown or the North Loop and does not want a downtown feel. Industrial zoning of any type is unacceptable. New development height should be limited to 5 stories. Harrison supports mixed-use development. Any new housing development should include at least 30% affordable housing. Employment opportunity should serve Harrison residents, and Harrison would like to maintain green space along Bassett Creek according to the Bassett Creek Master Plan. CPAD staff plan to issue an RFP to solicit proposals for redevelopment later this year if we can acquire this other private property. The neighborhood and ROC will be involved in developing the RFP and help advise on the selection of a preferred proposal. A recommendation for granting exclusive development rights will, of course, be brought back to this committee after that community process. I'm available to address any questions.
Ms. Grossen, obviously I know a lot about this. It's also been about 20 years of my life working on this. Is there any property in this location that has any residential structures on it now?
No.
So it would be incorrect to say that Harrison stands with the neighborhoods in demanding that all residents given current right of refusal in new housing that might displace them, since none of this area has any housing on it now, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And with regard to zoning, the zoning would not allow a high-rise or a tower taller than high-rise, correct? It's a mix of industrial zone.
That is correct.
So the zoning wouldn't allow a high-rise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think there's a little bit of an exaggeration of the concern in this area. There's no residents in this location now. There's not any residents even remotely near this location now. And it has industrial zoning, which the neighbors don't want, and we're trying to change.
That is largely correct. However, the property west of Van Wyck is currently zoned R5, but that's the area that I'm suggesting would go toward more of a mixed use and perhaps have less housing and more of the possibility of commercial.
Right, and so that gets to the issue of we demand 30% of the units be affordable, but none of the land is even zoned residential. So all three of these demands are things that have nothing to do with what's happening in this action. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Councilmember Kano.
Yeah. Is there anybody from Harrison?
Yep, there are 3 people here to speak.
Okay. Are they going to be allowed to?
As soon as the public hearing is open, but we're asking staff questions now.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
I'm pretty clear on how to run the public hearing. Thank you for your advice. Are there any other questions for staff? Great. Thank you for that report. We'll open up the public hearing, which is on item number 5, which is a resolution approving the redevelopment plan to facilitate the redevelopment of the 7.5 acres, as noted in the report. I have 3 people who have signed up to speak. You must be Tom.
No, my name is Richard Panzeroni.
You're number 2. Okay, you can speak first.
I am a long-term resident of the North Side. I've lived there since 1980. I've seen the neighborhood go from bad to worse, and now it's improving. I'd like to see that continue. I think when people think of the North Side, they think of bad things. There's a lot of good people living on the North Side. I've gotten to know many of them. We used to have a large supermarket and 2 gas stations in our neighborhood. They've closed up. They're gone now. All the jobs have been lost. I'm very concerned about this redevelopment plan on Van Wyck Memorial Boulevard and 2nd Avenue. I really feel like the residents of the Harrison Neighborhood Association, Bryn Mawr and the North Side, should have a sufficient amount of input as to what's done within this redevelopment plan. I'm concerned about jobs. I'm concerned about any type of businesses that could provide jobs for the residents. And I'm asking you that you consider us when you make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The first person signed up to speak is, I can't read his name, Tom?
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Tu Zhang.
Could you just state your name and address for the record?
My name is Tu Zhang. I work for the Harrison Neighborhood Association. Good morning, members. Good afternoon, members. On behalf of Harrison Neighborhood Association, in regards to the plan, I think we're supportive. Harrison is supportive of the mixed-use development plan. And what the concern was that with the mixed use, we're thinking that there might be a possibility that there might be some housing units in that area too. And the residents, I think their concern overall is that they're just concerned about the potential for gentrification in the region. And they do take pride in all of Harrison, including the business areas too. And, the residents just wants to put out their comments for the council members to consider. And Harrison looks forward to working with City Council and move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The third person signed up to speak it's super hard to read. Are you Mr.
Powers?
Powers, welcome. Thank you.
Danitra Powers.
Welcome.
Could
you state your name and address for the record?
Danitra Powers. I work for the Harrison Neighborhood Association, but I've also lived in Harrison neighborhood the last 14 years of my life. I grew up there. Harrison neighborhood is an environmental justice community with 65% of the residents people of color. 70% of the communities are renters. 40% of that community are people that are under the age of 25. 17% are disabilities. From a residential perspective, my biggest concern is the good intentions of this redevelopment plan and other redevelopment plans typically don't promise what they say they're going to promise as far as affordable housing options for community members, jobs, cleanup of contaminated soils. So we would like to just go forward with just stating that after the zoning changes happen, any new development